You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa. So happy people.
Hi.
Good evening to all of you watching and connecting to the Pan African Daily TV this wonderful, beautiful Thursday evening in Europe and in the America and the Caribbeans and the continent somewhere. It's probably afternoons where you are. So we want to welcome you to this special edition. First and foremost, first things first, I do want to apologize for the guest that we ought to have today, Dr. Reverend Nina Nakweku. Just call us a couple of 20 minutes ago to say they are in a blackout out there in California and it's going to last for 6 hours. Luckily, because the Pan African family is always spontaneous and they're always waiting, we have our sister Daseta Gray and her daughter who made a wonderful experience by going to the continent, I think, for the first time, and they want to share the experience, the incredible experience of this journey with us as an inspiration and as a motivation. So we'll be taking a lot of questions and answers from you out there in the public today. And the show that was supposed to take place today with Reverend Dr. Ninana is going to take place tomorrow, like I said, because of the blackout. Can you imagine? I mean, and I'll be addressing this directly to Queen Daseta Gray. I mean, you were on the continent. Definitely, you experienced a lot of cutout and blackout and no power, like we always saying on the Pan African Daily. But could you imagine that it's also happening in a country or first world developed country like America, that there would be a blackout for 6 hours, no electricity? I mean, in their neighborhood, probably, or in their compound where they're doing some repairs. It's not going to be like the whole America is in a blackout, of course, but it's strange. It's strange to know that, we're talking about a very high where you are, and then you're getting a blackout for 6 hours in a developed a country that has to do with a lot of business and investment. I mean, you can think fridges will be going off, there will be no light, and it's not like on the continent, even with
But that
light,
happened
people
every day in
really
the
use
subway.
all those kind of technologies, right? So yes, this is what is happening here on the Pan African Daily TV. But luckily, we have our Queen Dasita and the princess there. They'll be sharing beautiful memories from the continent and everything you want to know. So we get back to the studio with them. Good evening, Queen
Good
Mother
Good
evening.
and
evening.
Queen Princess. Good evening out there. So what time are we when we say good evening there? Because it's good evening by me. It's 8:20 in Germany. What time do you have out there?
It's 2:16 p.m. 2:16 in the afternoon.
2:16 in the afternoon. Okay, that
Mm-hmm.
is Eastern American Standard Time, right? Where you are, your zones.
Yes. Yeah.
Pro-
Mm-hmm.
And so, but in the Caribbean, that's gonna be 3:16, isn't it?
It's 1:16 now.
1:16. Oh yes, okay. So
Oh yeah, because
I want to start with the princess because the sitter, I mean, I know with you will have to roll up a lot with your program and every engagement that you have. But it was quite interesting while I was discussing with you to also know that your daughter was on the continent in Ivory Coast. How was it being out there? Was it your first time?
Yeah, it was my first time. So my name is Olufumi, and it was a wonderful experience. I don't speak a lot of French, but luckily my friends that are from there, some of them live there, and some are visiting for the month. Were able to help me out, but I also use an app to help with the translation. So it was
how
an experience.
how did you even come to think of going to Ivory Coast, knowing that? Did you prepare to know that, okay, I'm already going to a French speaking African country, so I'm ready for everything, or you just got into it? How
It
did you
was
come
it
with that
was
idea?
it was divine actually. I do a lot of work for a lot of people,
Mhm.
and my friends know that. So my friends actually said, "You know what? We're going to be going home for a while. So we want you to come and join us. So we're gifting you the trip." So it wasn't planned.
Ah, all right. And these friends of yours were Ivorians in the States.
So I have friends that live, they're Ivorian. They live in the States, but they were going to be going home for some time, for about a month or two. So they said,
Okay.
you need a break, so you need to come and join us. So I said, okay.
Oh my God. Oh, all right. It's because already you are in that work. So what work actually do you do in this? I mean, from your name, Olufumi, even though you're born and raised out there, it means you're already conscious, you're already on that path, isn't it?
Yeah, I was born in the Caribbean, and within Jamaica, there is a group called the Maroons, and they are made up of the Mandingo, Coromantee, and Ashanti tribes.
Mhm.
So the connection to the continent has always been there.
Okay. So definitely you had been curious to like, I want to see how it looks like. So just tell me, you left from here, you went to the airport. What is it that you thought, wow, am I in a different space? Or was it just like, okay, I'm here?
It was, yeah, it was like, I wonder what it's gonna be like. I'm here. And to answer the other question, I deal with education, but also entertainment. So I'm involved in Nollywood movies, so I understand the landscape. So I'm like, this is gonna be interesting. I get to go because when I speak to my colleagues in other African countries, they ask me, have I been? Because they know I'm dealing with Nollywood. And I said, I've only been to Morocco, which I know is very different than West Africa. So I was blessed to be able to go and experience that.
Wow, wow, wow. This is getting even more interesting. This is getting just so interesting. Probably you'd been the one that we've been looking out for. Nollywood. You do work for Nollywood. Tell me, what do you do actually? Like I said, this is getting us closer.
I manage a brand. It's a family business that my partner has. He oversees all of the digital space for the Nollywood company,
Mhm.
and also so we do distribution and production both in Ghana and Nigeria.
Beautiful. Wow. No, then I'll have to get you on a one-on-one. But to be honest
Exactly.
with you, yes, I would have to get you on a one-on-one show, to be honest with you, Olofumi, because I think we've been talking about this industry. We've been talking about how we transport the stories out from the continent into the diaspora, and the Nollywood is one of those break-ins that had made a lot of impact. But then we want to see what are the elements that we could use that will be really, really educative enough and really truly representing, apart from just entertaining and sharing that. So how long were you in Ivory Coast?
I was there for 10 days and they wanted
Oh,
me to stay longer.
yeah,
You
but
got
I
a
think you
ta-
could
a
look.
taste.
I had a taste.
What was the food like, the people like, the everything? Just tell us what kind of experience in 10 days. I know it's very short, but of course you made a difference.
Yeah, the food is good. Uh, there were a few similarities to Jamaica. Like some
Yes.
of the food there, like sour sop and jelly coconut and what we call Jamaican apple. But in
Hmm.
Costa Rica, they call it, uh, the translation in English would be a water apple.
Hmm.
And they don't jerk, but they have a huge grill where they grill meat. So lamb, uh, the intestines, the
Hmm.
tripe, and you can just mix that up and you just have it. And what was really interesting is that the heavy meal is during the day. Like I like fufu, and it was towards the evening, and I'm saying to my friends, I want fufu for dinner. And they look at me like, no, we don't eat fufu for dinner. We eat it in the middle of the day. So I said, oh. And it was when uh 2 days before I was leaving, I said I want to bring some fufu to the US with me. Futu, not even fufu, futu,
Hmm.
which is the pounded plants, yellow plantain. And when
Yes.
I went to the restaurant and went to the back to talk to them, I realized why they only serve it in the middle of the day. Because it's a lot of work. You have this huge pot. You boil the plantains and then you're just putting it in this huge mortar and pestle and just two women just mashing it down until it's the right consistency. So I have a new appreciation for food too.
Mhm.
I thank them for their work. But it was good. I had a TK every day, morning and afternoon, sometimes with fish, sometimes with guinea fowl. I had a great time. I wanted to go to the village. I didn't have a chance. And it was funny because every time I mentioned that to my friends, they would laugh. I said,
That
"Why are
you
you
want to go to the
laughing?"
village, right?
To the village. And they would laugh.
um. Okay, but why do you think that they laughed?
I think they laugh because here I am, even though I live in the United States, they don't know me to know that I'm very grounded. And I would
Mhm.
rather be in the village than in the city. So I think they laugh because like, how are you gonna manage in the village?
Mhm. Mhm.
There may not be a lot of electricity up there or running water. And I'm okay with all of that. I wanted to go to the village. So one of my other friends who was going to go to the village to visit his father was going to take me, but the day he was going to go, I wouldn't have been able to get back in time to take my flight back to the US. So next time I'll go to the village.
This
But
is
I did
quite
get gifts from the village.
yes. This is quite interesting, Olo, for me. That's why I'm saying that, to be honest with you, this is the sister shows today, but we would have you on this conversation because there's a lot, there's the small, short sentences that you've made, like the idea of you coming from the States, born in the state, raised out here in the diaspora, and you go back to the continent and they won't even want you to go to the village because the way the people in the townships consider the village is like rural, undeveloped, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so you're coming here, they want to do a favor. That
And
is what they do.
yeah, and I want to
Yes.
add that I had that same experience. People saying, "Oh, you're from New York. How can you do this? And how can you do that?" Like I want to get in those little vans instead of getting in a taxi, get in the bus, with everyone, and they're like, "Wait a minute, you come from New York and you're gonna ride in." So I basically had to explain that I grew up in Jamaica, in the country, where I had no running water, no electricity. I had to walk in the dark with a flash, with a bottle torch, because we had to put kerosene oil in the bottle and a paper. Then you shake it, and then you get to see when you're walking. So growing up like that, so I think a lot of times when you go to the motherland, people see you as a foreigner. They say, "Oh, you're from New York," but not understanding that once you grow up in the Caribbean, you have the same similarities.
Mhm.
And and that's what makes you rounded. Because yes, you're living in New York City, but if you go somewhere and there's no light, you're not gonna die because when you were growing up, when you were young, you experienced that.
Absolutely. And you see the mentality in development, really the mindset that we're talking about, always looking at the village and the rural areas like on civilization, and then living and coming to these filthy townships where everybody is just choked up and the traffic is
Yeah,
so dense and everything. And they look at that as civilization. That is
exactly.
considerably the mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's lack of exposure also. Because when people are exposed to different situations and different environments, they're able to adjust and
Correct.
adapt.
Mm,
So I think it's lack of exposure.
mm.
Yeah, and one of your guests mentioned that they're too Americanized. And I'm curious, is it that you're saying that they think we're too Americanized or they're too Americanized to want us to experience the village?
Oh, you're talking to the
I
guest. Oh,
think
she's a,
exactly like what they
Yes.
say. It's about exposure. Because I know even with me, I grew up in the village. I was raised up on the continent, and then okay, not all my entirety. And then I came here. But when I go back, for instance, and my friends or peers were like, "You going back to the village?" Like I never even came back. So my own is even worse because I grew up there. But they're looking at like, no, it's like you're not supposed to even go there. It's a mentality thing, right?
yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, I think so. And that is why education is very important. And
Yes.
education is not just attending a college situation, it's being exposed to different things and different environments and different people and different lifestyle. Because I feel like you should be able to live in a mansion or in a hut,
Mhm.
so you can adapt. So I really feel that way.
And that's even the best situation because, like, if we know only one, that's why we talk about the poor narratives of, the West going on the continent and they stay only in the cities and then come back and write all this kind of, they stay in the same spot or they go to the villages. So when they come back, write this narrative, some of us that don't identify begin to look at it like, wait a minute, even though they're selective in their narratives, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, but we also have to remember what our elders say about Sankofa, right?
Yes.
Going back and fetching, because if you don't remember where you've come from, how could you continue to push forward? And when you get to other levels, it is very important to return to not only share the information, because then that helps to build the human resources, investing in human resources, right? But also exposing folks to other opportunities because there's so much richness within the villages.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm reading the response
Okay. She's
to
reading.
my question about being Americanized
She's reading response.
in the
Yeah,
comments.
yeah,
Yes, it's very important to remember those elements. And I think a lot of it has to do with being able to see European programs, TV programs. Because I remember when I was a child in Jamaica, there was one station, one TV station, and when you finished school, there was no TV. You had to get your chores and your homework done. So the opportunity to be heavily influenced by European thought was decreased. And I think that's part of the challenge.
yeah. That's true. Because I remember even speaking to a friend's son, and he's 6, and his goal is to just come to America. He's 6 years old, and that's what he's thinking about. So it
Mm-hmm.
just goes to show how a lot of people on the continent is so brainwashed. And when I tell them, I say, "Oh, I'm planning to move to the Gambia." They're like, "What? Why would you leave America to move to the Gambia?"
Mm-hmm.
So I try to explain to them that living here is very stressful. It's nobody gives you anything. If you're on the continent and you're not working, yes, everybody lives in one compound. You could camp out in the compound and sleep. And when they cook one part, you're gonna eat. But when you're in the West, if you're not working for 4 or 5 months, you're gonna be in a lot of problems, and nobody's there to give you anything. And even if you're living with a family member, it's so much pressure on them to be feeding that extra person. So they're saying, okay, you need to find a job or else. So it's very different. But I just wish that a lot of us that travel would just give some real talk. Because sometimes what happens when people are going home, they go shopping, especially just to go home. So they get dressed up 3 times a day. They change their hairdo. They have the nails done and everything, and have shoes to match every outfit. So the thing is, the perception of the people that they're visiting, they're thinking, oh, well, she's or he's doing so well. And sometimes when they come back, they have to be working hard to pay down their credit card bills because they bought all those things just to put on a show.
Mhm.
Lifestyle is one of those challenges that we think that is actually when we talk of even our mindset, and we're talking most of the political systems, but particularly these narratives in terms of images that we even see. It's a lot to do with education, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is. It is. And that's why I was in the Gambia for 6 months. So I really had a good taste of the Gambia. Went to the country, I went to the village, I went all over and speak to with different people. But one of the things that I find is that a lot of Africans on the continent really do not know the history of Africa on the continent, much less in the West. Because if you know your history, you love yourself and you want to stay and build your continent instead of always everyone's trying to run to the West. So I feel that African history needs to be taught in schools. Pan-Africanism needs to be taught in schools starting in kindergarten so we can love ourselves because, the brain grows the most from birth to age 5. And if by age 5 you're not really secure in who you are, then it becomes a real problem. So I think that's one of the major issues.
And I think it's important too to say that we're not, well, at least I'm not saying that it's all over, right? We're speaking from the experience, and education is not just book wise, but it is experiences that you build on to be able to say, oh, okay, this is how it's done here. Let me pull those elements that will be beneficial to my community. Right? You can't just think that everyone is the same. I live here, I'm raised here, but that doesn't mean I'm of here. In the US, right? I am from the Caribbean. I am ancestral from the continent and have that as my foundation of which I build upon. Even going to the Caribbean, sometimes they treat me differently because I wasn't raised there, but that doesn't mean that I'm not of the place, culture wise. My mother says all the time that I'm more Jamaican than she is. And to me, that's a compliment because even my son, who's 9 going on 10, he was born here, but he is very much aware of his roots, his heritage. And I have friends that wish their children would talk about Jamaica as much as my son does. If you don't know better, you would think he's there every single year, few months at a time.
Yeah, that's true. But I also feel that it's the adults around because Olufumi came here when she was 3 years old. So, so growing up, if I was not imparting that culture in her, she wouldn't be able to, associate with her culture. So it really starts at home. It starts at home. But, I think now with the internet and everything, we could all learn about our culture, the great empires that existed in Africa. And now I just read an article yesterday. The Germans have agreed to take back all those things that they stole in Benin when they invaded Benin in the 1700s. Yeah, so so the thing is, when we go to these museums and we see these great art from Africa, we have to start thinking, wait a minute, if Africa was that bad, why would they go there and steal all these things and have it in their museums, making money from it, So I feel like we can use the internet to really educate each other.
I also think that a lot of times, so I'm looking at the comments, I'm not able to type in, but I think it's very, very important for us to remember you cannot expect someone that robbed you of stuff to give it back to you in an authentic way. So to say that school should teach about African history, they teach elements of it, but from whose perspective, right? So as parents, it's up to us and the community to seek out information and teach ourselves and our children. I remember, so I do diversity, equity, inclusion work as well. And I remember my son coming home and saying to me, "Oh, Mom, here's a definition of racism based on what my teacher said." And I said, "Hold on. Unfortunately, so many people don't understand the true definition of racism. So let me share with you what it is. And that's up to me to do. I don't expect the school to do that. And then we read a variety of books, and we've been doing that and watch documentaries since he was little. My son is a lighter complexion than I am because his father's from Puerto Rico. But he truly understands that he is part of the African diaspora. If you make the mistake to call him Caucasian, he will correct you in a moment and say to you that they're different shades of melanin-dominated beings.
Oh, God.
Period. And I had to do that from he was 3 years old. There's a poem that I taught him that he recites to this very day to let him know that he stands on the shoulders of kings and queens. And he should always be proud of who he is and where he comes from. No school is ever going to do that unless it is a melanin dominant school. But we know that most of the schools don't reflect us at all. So how can we truly expect them to give us stuff that they took?
And yeah, and even on the continent, sometimes, I know I spoke with a few high school school instructors, and I'm asking, are you teaching Pan-Africanism in the schools? And because they have a set curriculum, there's really no space for that. And when they teach history, of course, they have a curriculum, so there are only certain things they could teach. So we have to, in the communities, we have to have community schools, either in the afternoon or on the weekends, to impart our history to our children, because apparently across the globe, a lot of us have low self-esteem, low self-confidence, because when you dislike yourself, that's why so many Black people are bleaching. Because if you look in the mirror and you're proud with who you are, you're not going to be buying bleaching cream to bleach and make all these other people rich that's making the cream.
Let me tell you a quick story about that.
So,
while I was in the Ivory Coast, I went to Ajame Market, which is what I was told the largest open air market in West Africa. Folks come from other countries to shop there, buy stuff wholesale, and take it back to their respective countries to resell. I'm walking with my friend's wife, and she sees this woman and she tapped the woman. They exchange words. And then she turned to me and said, "Who's lighter?" And I just had to quickly pause and process what she said to me. And I said to her, I said, "You are," because it was true. She spent a few years utilizing a bleaching cream so that she is lighter than my palm. So her and the other lady were doing that, but she beat her, essentially. Of all the people in Ajame Market, there are thousands of people there on any given day. And they're the only two fair-skinned individuals there. Her children are darker than I am. Her husband too. So now how do you explain to folks that you love and honor the ancestors from which you've come? I was shocked when she asked me that, because to be quite honest, I wasn't sure that was the question.
And this is a few weeks ago, not 10 years ago, a few weeks ago. Yes, I guess I could talk a little more about the Gambia. I really had a wonderful time. I went to the market, and I was just amazed at the women of the market, because they're really great entrepreneurs. They're there from early in the morning to late at night, and a lot of them, they don't speak English, but they know how to conduct their business. And as I looked, I thought about how more women need to be going to school, more girls need to be going to school on the continent. Because on the street, you see a lot of men conducting business, like taxi drivers, and a lot of them speak English. But a lot of the women only speak Fula, Wolof, and their native other tongues. So that's another thing we have to work on, because when you educate a woman, you educate a nation. So I think that we have to work on that on the continent.
I'm just speechless because to be honest with you, I'm just jealous. And I know
Oh,
I've seen Kalena. Kalena has been
Pourquoi?
on the continent a couple of times, but I see a lot of people in the chat like, everybody's just like, okay, for those that are just joining us, I want to apologize. I know probably most of you, first of all, are shocked. Oh, okay, we were expecting Dr. Reverend Ninana, and then now we see Daseta Gray. Yes, Dr. Ninana is coming on the show tomorrow because he had a blackout in their area for 6 hours, and so he couldn't make it. There's no electricity out there in California where he is. Or in the neighborhood where he is. So for that reason, we have Adasita and Olofumi, the daughter, who were out on the visit, and we had already been programming them for next week. Of course, we'll still have the conversations with them, and now I'm even discovering that we'll have to work with Olofumi on a different scape. We will talk about that. But this is very important for us to get this kind of information. You talked about the educational system. Now, I think it's very obvious to you now why people on the continent would want to come to the diaspora or are rushing or dying at seas to come to Europe, because they were given the European education. All
yeah.
of us.
Yeah, the
I mean,
colonial.
yes, I knew European history so well to my fingertips, but I never knew African history. So it is a deliberate action that we like. When they took the slaves and then they later on colonizers, but what instruments did they use to colonize us? So it was still a format of remigrating us or enslaving us through the education. Nearly
Yeah,
half of the population, in as much as you surpass high school, everybody is looking to go to Europe to study in Europe, because the
yeah.
basic from the kindergarten, anyway, it's a luxury in the village and the communities, but from the
hmm
kindergarten to the secondary schools, to the primary, to the secondary schools, everything you learn is the white man's education and his religion. So imagine,
Exactly.
and then you begin to see those images like Olofome is saying. You see the white dolls that they're carrying. You see the white skin, the straight hair, and everything. Everyone just looks like, I want to go where that paradise that we see. Then the images
Mm,
that they show about the continent, about Europe and the West on the African media is like there is nothing like poverty or challenges in the West, right? You would
exactly.
never see a
Exactly.
problematic documentary. Everything is the paradise that, and that's why they designed the heaven in the Bible and the Jesus to look like exactly the place where we are. So it
Yeah,
is a drain, it is a systematic, well implemented strategy. And then you wonder, but how long do the leaders and the system don't know to
exactly.
But
correct it?
that's the
So,
key.
and I just want to make one correction because you mentioned that they took slaves. I mean, when they went to Africa, people were not slaves. They took
Yes,
the
sorry.
doctors, the lawyers,
Mm,
because the people that they brought here built the West. They grow the corn, they grow the rice, they build the buildings. So they were not slaves. They enslaved them when they got here. So
correct.
I think that language is also very critical because, when you speak, eventually you take it on and you become it.
Yes,
So we have to say that they enslaved our people. They didn't take
enslaved. Yes,
slaves. So I
my
just
bad.
wanted to,
That. Thank you.
yeah, no problem.
The other part too, Dr. Susan, is you talked about systems, and in the chat they're talking about systems too. I think for far too long we would sit and talk amongst ourselves about the systems rather than putting a strategy in place to reset the system.
Correct.
Say we do Control Alt Delete. I spent a great deal of time doing just that. In fact, I have an event Tuesday for New York State talking about developmentally appropriate practices as well as the history of early childhood, but from
Mhm.
a diversity, equity, and inclusive lens and really painting the picture as to what the education system in early childhood really looks like and looked like for melanin dominated families, not what they show as quality from the perspective of the Caucasians, because what we need for our families is a little bit different based on our lived experience. So we need to put strategies in place to be able to reset various systems. And it's not just the education system, because I also talk about intersectionality of different industries. The entertainment industry impacts our families. The real estate industry impacts our families. The finance industry impacts our families. Everything, right? So different groups need to help find ways to reset the system so that it is applicable to our benefit, not detriment. Because that racism is real. It's embedded into the system. That's why it's called systemic racism.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Okay, and also on the continent, I was reading an article a couple of days ago that shows that only 7% of children have access to early childhood education. So the thing is, if the brain grows the most from birth to age 3, and if you're not getting that education from 0 to 3, it's really a big problem, because how are we gonna have an Africa that we want? We need to have people who know how to think, how to problem solve, how to negotiate. And yeah, but the thing is, if we're not giving our children, investing in them in those early years from 0 to 5, what is going to happen? We're going to have a continent, because the white population is only 8% of the world's population, and they were saying by the next 10 years, 8 out of every 10 people will be a person of color. So are we just going to be in numbers and have no control? So we have to start investing in the young ones.
It is, I must really confess, or I must agree that it is complex. It is so complex. That's why it sounds as if we keep talking about the same thing. It's because we're already conscious. But imagine, Olufumi, if you had to spend your time, that lady that was showing you her palms is going to prove beyond every doubt that she likes what she is doing, and she is conscious about the decisions that she's making. You see, that's the ignorance. You can teach, you can bring any other thing. We know that the only a solution is to create alternatives. That's what Africa has never done. And actually, the agendas that are operating on the continent actually made it like that. It's like we're a colony under Europe. I say like, but apparently that's what it is. Because from, like I said, from everything, if you look at the way we think, if you would put church, look at how many Africans are really church goers, or how many institutions of religion are operating on the continent. And you could really trace the roots of which colonizer was in which part with which religion. I take a very simple case in Cameroon. If you go to the Northwest and you go even to my area, you see most are Presbyterian, because they were the Basel missionaries. Then if you go even just opposite to where my children's father come from, then you see that they're Catholics, because the missionaries that way were Catholics, and even the hospitals are Baptist hospital or Catholic. And then the education is a dormitory kind of educational system that is missionary too. So these three sectors are very fundamental: the hospital, the church, and the education. There are three things that interwove with the same. So they have the church, they have the hospital, and then they have the school. So it's a missionary, it's either a Catholic or a Presbyterian, but both institutions start from the school, the church, and the health center. Now look at all the services. This is one industry, but divided into three, and you can already, so you bring the religion. From the religion, now you become healers for problem. Then after this healers of a problem, then you provide the health care. All the same structure.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because when I was in Gambia, I was asking some of those questions like, okay, so everyone one is doing Islam, but Islam is not learned in Fula or in Wolof. It's in Arabic.
Mhm.
So I was asking that question: why aren't we learning our religion in one of our African languages? So it shows that the colonizers brought all these religions and forced us to participate in it in their language, not even in our language.
Mhm.
So
Correct.
that's like a food for thought. That's a food for thought. But
Can you imagine? Sorry, yes, go ahead.
yeah, but I think that one of the things I've noticed also that the idea of change is
Hmm.
very difficult for a lot of diasporans, whether you're in Jamaica, whether you're in America. A lot of Black people, it's very difficult for them to change. And that's because a lot of us are traumatized. And
Hmm.
some of the things that we're doing, it's unconscious. So until we start seriously think about why things are and how we can change it, nothing's gonna happen because we're so like brain. It's called soul murder. When you take someone and you strip them from everything and then you put somebody else in them, it's called soul murder. So that is
Hmm.
what has happened to us because they take our culture, they take our language, they take our religion. So now we're walking around looking like an African, but inside of us, a lot of us aren't.
It's also cultural
Correct.
appropriation, right? Because here's one of the things that has always, two things that's always fascinated me. One is when a young person decides to go to college, it is their opportunity and choice to take what we call an Africana studies class, where they learn a lot about African history.
Yes.
And usually the professor is Caucasian. That's number one.
Hmm.
Number two, the Caucasians will learn more about us because when you want to keep folks down, it's important to know more about your enemy than your enemy knows about themselves. Do you agree with that? So they do that. So there's another part to it too, which is we have this tendency to always say that Caucasian stuff is good, want to learn about them and want to emulate them, but don't want to know about our own history because it's too hurtful. But yet the Jews will tell you about the Holocaust every opportunity that they get because they don't want their children to forget nor to fall prey to that again.
Hmm.
So what is our issue with learning about our history? No, you don't want to stay away from books written by Caucasians because if you want to know how to beat someone, you need to learn about them.
You're getting hot.
I'm on it. Really, I feel I'm enjoying the conversation. I'm really hot, and that's why I have to. Of course, makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense. It's the same, isn't
yeah,
it? The same strategy that when we talk about the strategy, it's the same.
Yes, you read
yeah,
the art of war and realize all the great leaders that were able to win battles is because they studied the enemy.
Correct.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah. So yeah, I hope that I just hope that more of us will become rounded because if you look at YouTube and you put up someone dancing, have you noticed how many views they usually get, right?
Hmm.
But if you're having an intellectual discussion, yeah. But the thing is, dancing. So when I was growing up, my children, dancing is a natural thing with us. So you don't focus on that. You focus on building people's intellect, teaching them how to think and how to reason, right? Because dancing is going to be a part of your life all the time, and it comes natural.
Let's talk about dancing because someone in the chat mentioned rap music and hip hop. Now,
What I said about it.
the folks that you see on camera look like us. The folks that control the strings don't look like us. What's wrong with that picture? They're Jews.
Yeah.
I remember sitting with a very influential elder in the entertainment industry who said she sat with a rap group and they wanted to come out and do different type of music. And they were told, if you do that, you're not going to eat. They will make sure you do not eat. So how are you going to be able to support your family? They don't look like us. We are okay with spending our money, watching streams, purchasing music. Again, I'm in the entertainment industry, so I'm just making it known about what's going on the back end, so that we can be more conscious of how we spend our dollars, because at the end of the day, dollar is king. If half of us decide we're not going to spend our money in certain places, things will change. The systems will change. The entertainment industry will change. We spend billions of dollars in a day. I'm not even talking about a week or a month or in a year, in a day.
Exactly. Yeah. We're consumers. Yeah.
Dr. Susan's like, I'm coming to Germany, don't worry.
No, of course, Olafumi, because you're just hitting, you're hitting exactly on, I don't know, you're just hitting on the nail on it. I don't know what's happening. It's, are you disconnected? Are we disconnected?
No, we're here.
No,
we're here. We're here.
We're here. Yeah.
If we disconnect, it's because the powers that be said it's too hot.
Yeah, but seriously, we as a people, we have to get it together, because it's not like we don't like. For example, the leaders, they need to be investing in education. There's no way they should be having like 65 kids in a classroom, 3-year-olds. They should be building small schools in each village so children can be in a space with a reasonable number of children so they could get the skills that they need. Because Africa has the youngest population. So if you don't invest in them, what's going to happen 20 years from now?
Exactly.
Hold on, I want to ask this
all
question.
the all the people from Europe and China is going to come to take over Africa when so we have to.
They don't have to take it over. We're giving it to them. You know why?
Yeah,
because they studied us and they say we know infrastructure is an issue there. Let's fix their infrastructure. In Jamaica, they have built not one but 2 highways, and every single dollar from the toll goes to China. So what ends up happening is those that are in the smaller villages that people used to have to drive through are no longer driving through them, mainly because there's no exit off the highway into those areas.
So they're losing money.
No one thought about that when China said, oh, let me come and I'll build this for you. They just said, oh, it'll be faster for us to get from point A to point B. But what about 1A through D before getting to B?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I'm trying to point out, that critical thinking is critical. But if you're in a school system where you're not being taught, because when you're able to do critical thinking, you're able to problem solve. In Asia, they teach a whole class on critical thinking to children. So critical thinking is very important because, for example, if you have, Rishima likes to give this example. So you have a baby and the baby's 9 months old and the baby's playing with the ball and the ball goes under the bed. But you don't give that child the opportunity to figure out how to get it. You just go and get it. So already you're, eliminating the process of thinking.
Yes, I've been listening inside your house.
Well,
I'm sorry.
So the thing is, critical thinking starts when children are very young, given the opportunity to use their brains. The frontal lobe is the part of the brain that's responsible for critical thinking and problem solving. And if the adults around you don't allow you to develop that, you'll grow up not thinking, just like how a lot of the leaders, they just sign contracts because they don't have a group of people who are doing critical thinking to go over the contract line by line, look into it, have a discussion. They're just signing things. The frontal lobe is very important. That's the most important part of the brain.
Yeah. I just want to revisit something.
Go ahead.
Elders say knowledge is power. And if you want to hide something from melanin dominated folks, you put it in a book.
Yeah, the presence.
Now, I really want to overstand if we ever controlled the entertainment industry. When you look back at some of the great entertainers that OD'd, they died because of drug overdose, it's because we didn't control the industry. Because if we did, they would have gotten better opportunities and they wouldn't be so stressed out. So I think we need to just take a moment to really reflect on different things and then say, how do we get better? How do we remove those barriers, right? And I know we each speak and view things based on our lived experience, and that's okay. But at some point, be open to the possibility that some of the things that you may be sharing, there may be gaps. And in order to move the community, not individualistic like European thought process, the community forward, we have to sit and say, what is going to be beneficial for the majority of us and not a small percentage of us to be better, right? Because we need to be building legacy. It's not about us anymore. It's not about me anymore. It's about my son, my son's children, my son's children's children. It's not about me.
You're so special. I mean, I don't want to be tempted to say how old are you, but you know, this
I want them to guess. Go ahead, guess. In the chat, guess.
Well, you know, I'm gonna share so I'm gonna share a comment.
For me, I don't want to guess, to be honest. Daseta, go ahead.
Yeah, so you know, my 23-year-old daughter this morning, she was saying to me, she said, you know, Mom, you know, she's realizing why Africa is behind. So I said, why? She said, you know, just imagine they took all those people from Africa that they were supposed to be the workers, the people who should be building the continent, and brought them to the West. The West used them to build the West, and now their children are still here, the grandchildren are still here. So that is why our continent is behind. No, I never thought about it like that, but if you think about it, it's really true.
But then we also become indigenous to this land.
You know?
Right? So we have to learn to claim our rights to this land.
Yeah,
that's a whole other discussion.
But she was really saying that this morning, and I actually thought about it. You know, she's a Pan-Africanist also.
Is it also possible? I'm asking to both of you. I mean, regarding that, sometimes I also used to think, yeah, we're behind. But if you look at the way the system functions, are we really behind, or they are on the wrong path and we are on the right path? I mean, I want to talk about a spirituality. Like you said, you going back. If we would just develop our systems to be in a slow system and stay the way we are, that's much better. And I think that's even the way the world should go. Because if we want to say we're behind and we compare it with this system, I think we're wrong.
So I don't think we're saying we're behind. We're just saying that all the brains that they took from Africa would have allowed Africa to develop further, because we already had systems. We had the schools. When they went there, they burned down all the libraries. They broke, you know, all the kingdoms they burned down. So that's the thing we're saying. You know, they put us back a 100 years because all the intellects, they kill them. So that's what we're talking about.
You know, I want to, if So Black Panther was a movie. But if you really pay attention to it, it's really reminding us of the ingenuity that we have as melanin dominated people. That's really what it was about, right?
Mhm.
I mean, in Ghana, they're doing some amazing stuff right now. And I think it is important to remember that barriers have been put in front of us. So like when we look at the corrupt politicians, it's because they're a puppet to a system, right? That's really what it is. And if we realize that, then we make smarter choices and selections as to who's going to lead us. For example, I have this book here. It talks about historical stuff. I read it. I used to read it to my son, and one item that they talked about was math. Like my mom touched on math. Something as simple as the Pythagorean theorem. They talk about a Greek man created that, but in truth, he was in an African country studying that and brought it and claimed it as his. Now, meanwhile, we sit and do what we do because we understand the greatness of which God put within us as representation of the Creator. So we don't stifle anything, and we don't keep anything. We share it. So we're not sitting there saying, well, we're going to give him this information. Now he's going to take it, steal it, and create it and call it his own. No. So we are way ahead. We have always been ahead. I mean, when we have a young man that is able to create a radio station from found materials from walking down the road, and now folks are like, well, how did he do that at 12? That doesn't say that we're behind.
Yeah.
That says that we're gifted and blessed.
Yeah, we are.
We have to claim that.
Yeah. Oh, there's also a book. You could type. Can you type anything?
I have to log in.
Oh, it's called Herodotus and His Stories. When he went to Africa in the 6th century, he wrote about all the advancement that was there. So he was one that brought back a lot of the ideas to Europe. It's called Herodotus and His Stories. So you really want to get a sense of thievery. You could read that book. But back to the Gambia. Yeah, I had but I think it's it shows how when people are broad, when you're exposed, you could have different conversations, and go from one thing to the next, and it's relevant to the moment. But I really had a wonderful time in the Gambia, and I liked the Gambia because it's small, and it reminds me of Jamaica a lot. A lot of the sayings that they have in Jamaica, they have them there. Like, for example, you should not buy a man a shoes because he'll walk away from you. They say that in Jamaica also. They have kalaloo there. They cook porridge. So there's so many similarities. They throw susu or partner. They also do that in the Gambia. So it was very interesting. And I also but one of the things I found is that although I felt at home, I felt like a stranger because a lot of the culture I don't know. I don't speak the language. So, I'm on the soil, but I still felt like I was a stranger there. And one day something happened because Juliet and I went to the sea, went to the beach, and we were walking in the water. And I said, no, what, I can't stay in the water because it's the same path that the ships would take to come to the west. And for some reason it seemed like I'm seeing like people jumping overboard, and so I said, no, I can't stay in the water. So that was very the trauma that my ancestors suffered. When I got to that water, it's come like it made full circle, so that those blood memories just kind of rose up. So that was very Yeah, that was a interesting moment.
Wow.
For me, my experience so I have a lot of friends from the continent. I always have. And so a lot of things that I'm used to. In fact, when I returned, so my son plays soccer. He's part of a soccer club that is predominantly made up of Africans, many from the Ivory Coast. And he has a restaurant. So I went to his restaurant, and one of the players is there because we have boys from age 2 to 22. So one of the older boys was there, and he came over to me to ask me what my experience was like. And then he came over and says, "Did you eat with your hands? With your hands?" And I said, "Yes." And because he doesn't really know me like that, he doesn't know that those are things that I've done before. Like I didn't need to go to the Ivory Coast to experience that.
It was in Jamaica.
I've done that here, right? Because I am so in tune to my ancestral elements that it didn't really matter to me. I went, and the only thing that was added for me was the whole setup, the preparation of getting our meal ready, right? You put everything on the table, you bring either a bowl or a pot with some cool water to clean your hands. I already knew to use my right hand and never your left. Like so those things culturally I'm aware of. So I felt very comfortable and I really enjoyed it. Again, I wish I just knew more French, but it worked. And I see a variety of opportunities there. So I'm starting to have discussions about agriculture, opportunities there. Um, I think it's great. And I think we should all have an opportunity to travel outside of the United States, to be quite honest. I've always been an advocate of that since I was in college. I'd always tell young people you should do that because it changes your perspective so much.
Exactly. And another thing I want to talk about is agriculture, because I've learned that Africa imports a lot of food. So I just, I'm just wondering why we're not encouraging more young people to farm, because everyone is leaving the provinces and coming to the city. And when you're in the city in Banjul, it's like so crowded, especially in the afternoon, so much traffic. So we really have to encourage people to stay in the province and grow their food and make it a business. So because that's very important. Because how are you going to be importing food, and these people, they might send poison food, right? Because they always want to kill us. So you never know what they're shipping over. You have to be very careful.
It is, yes. It is very important because, like you said, traveling. And I think that's one of the things that I realized when I migrated or I relocated or I came here. I realized how ignorant the West is when they don't travel. And that's also about education. Like you said, the education is not a classroom academic where we sit and then get degrees and stuff. Traveling a lot is a lot of education.
Yeah, it is.
That's that
It
kind of,
is.
and that's that kind of pragmatic, practical education that we do on a daily basis, meeting people, talking to them. Like in Germany, Germans are very conservatives. Like, it's really hard before you will get a close contact to somebody until they really know you, trust you, before they
Mhm.
can get closer. Now, then you begin to look at us, the way we relate, the way we, not to care for about one another. And you see, that's also just the communication in the body language, and the transaction is too much education out there,
Yeah.
right? And so education in this kind of a format, like the informal, like on the continent, is that's why I think they really consider Africa the center of civilization, because we know how to live and operate with one another without
Mhm.
somebody actually teaching us. You meet children, they just play together without. But here you're already
Exactly.
separated even from primary school. No, it's my child, it's not your child. Oh, this one would infect this and that. And so that's civilization, the ability to live with one another
Mhm.
Yeah.
is way. It's what is
Yes,
the
I
Yeah.
remember.
education that we
Yeah.
think if the West is not arrogant, they will learn a lot from Africa and like
Mhm.
and this art of traveling. So when Olofumi was talking, I had the impression like this guy that met you and said, "Oh, did you eat with your hands?" What how did you feel when he asked you? Did you think it's ignorance or arrogance or just it, it's a degree of something. I don't know how to put it. You're
Well,
black.
he's
A teenager. Huh?
he's 21. And I already know that many of our people are not exposed to different things. So for me, it is to educate him. So the next time he formulates a similar question to someone else, he may pause before asking that question. My job is to help educate our community, especially our young people.
Exactly.
So it is
Exactly.
not to, say to him, why are you asking me that question? No, it's for me to know that each of us have a different lived experience, and
Mhm.
how do I help deliver information to
Yeah.
improve. I'm sorry, hold on one second.
Yeah, my restrooms over there. We gotta plug the computer. Computer, the battery's running low. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But it's oh, do you have any callers? Maybe they want to make comments or
I think yeah, we sign. We really want to share this information. The callers who come in will open up the lines. We are not even close into that opening of the
oh,
lines
okay,
now.
great. Okay,
Yes,
great.
so you can go
Yeah.
on.
So,
Yes.
yeah, but the and another thing that was touching on the continent, whenever if I go to the market and I say I'm from Jamaica, they say, "Oh, welcome home, sister. It's been 400 years." Wherever I went to, and I say I'm from Jamaica, so a lot of people are aware of the transatlantic slave trade, but what happened to the people after they got here, they're not aware of that.
Of
You
course,
know,
I'm
we
sorry,
so
will
I'm
cross.
reading the comments too, so good.
So I think that's the piece that's missing, because when you say to people that we've been traumatized, we're suffering over here, sometimes they can't relate to that because of the social mirror that they've been shown.
Mhm.
That America is, the land of
Mhm.
opportunities and all that. So sometimes, and a lot of, I mean, a lot of people went through a lot of trauma. I'm just reading this book. It's called When Rape Was Legal. And it talks
Mhm.
about how they would actually sell young women to to white families because for the boys to use them as prostitutes. So all these trauma that our ancestors went through, and a lot of us, and no, there's no therapy. Nobody got any therapy, so people still live with that trauma. So when we come home, we are coming home to have peace, quietness, and healing. Because for the 6 months I was there, I mean, I really felt like everybody was saying, "Oh, you look so young." When I sent the pictures, I was always happy. I was always smiling because it's so calm. There's no fire truck running around, no police alarm, no ambulance. It was just really quiet all the time, peaceful.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it was really a healing experience.
Wow. I mean, it's very important to say that. I've also had feedbacks of people. I think you met Glendon also in Gambia, and we've had
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
did. Yeah, I did meet Glendon. Yeah.
yes. We also have people very in the early stage or on the first time back home that have made some very incredible bad experiences in the a shock culture and stuff like that, and they always refer us back. And I think it's very important for us also in the diaspora to understand that though we say, "Oh, Africa is friendly," is this, they also having this. There's still also bad people. When I say bad
Mhm.
people,
Yeah,
like
they are.
they're
Yeah,
in
they
every
are
color,
because
they're in every society, they're in every continent, they're everywhere. They're pickpockets, they're this. So sometimes the notion of going back home when we talk about that. Oh, it's friendly, is this? And so people might overrate it, like, I don't know, some people have another complete
Experience.
understanding. And so when they go, then they make some of those experiences, they become more disappointed. I talked to Glendon, and he told me about his story, his experience, how he was robbed.
Yeah, he said he was robbed. Yeah,
Yeah.
I spoke
Yes,
to him.
but the one thing that I love in that conversation, when he called me late in the night, I'm like, oh, Susan, you can imagine. But he, in the morning that we talked about, he said, but I'm not going anywhere. It's home, and it can happen anywhere. So that is
Yeah.
one of the education that we're talking about. So sometimes, like when they tell us, oh, Europe is like this, the diaspora talking like migrant diaspora, like me. I'm a migrant diaspora. You are indigenous diasporans. We have to make this very clear. The different group, right? And so us that come maybe for other purpose, marriage, study, or whatever, and we stay, and then we bring the siblings, or they want to know. And so sometimes when we tell them it's hard, it's the same thing like when we leave from the diaspora, we go back to the continent for the first time, and then we get that experience. But it's difficult until you go there and make your own experience. The only fundamental basics that we tell everyone is it is the continent of with its own challenges, but it is home. That's the difference.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I think one of the things that I did when I got there first, I got some African clothing. So
Mhm.
no one really, a lot of times people start speaking to me in Fuller. So I said, oh no, I don't speak Fuller, I only speak English because of my appearance. So I try to really blend in so I don't stick out too much. Because like you said, everywhere people can prey on you if they realize you're from the West. You go to Jamaica, it may happen. You know, you have bad people everywhere. I mean, that's why a lot of us were sold, right? Because some of our own people sold us.
Correct.
So we know that there are bad people, and that's a thing we don't talk about either on the continent. How they need to be apologizing to us because they sold. I mean, I know the white people went there and got a lot of us, but a lot of us were also sold, caught. You know, if you have a little war or you hold the neighbor, they'll sell you and stuff like that. So I'm aware of all of that. But there's another conversation for another time. But the thing is, I think like I'm really sorry what happened, but anything could happen. Because while I was there, a few people got the like the purse snatch and stuff like that. But I've not had any of those experiences. I never had, I walked alone. Because I went there alone. I took the bus, I took the taxi. I never really, but things happen. Just like in New York City, a lot of things happen, but it's fortunate that I've been here all these years and I've never had those experiences happen to me.
Yeah. So the way I blended in, I wore, what I usually wear. I did get my hair braided because I insisted that I wanted it done by folks on the continent, not American style braiding. So I still have my braids in. I had someone come to the house and braid my hair. But when I would go to some shops, I would tell my friends, stop saying I'm American. I'm from Jamaica. Because the reception is different. I know this.
Yeah,
From I started traveling when I was 10. I know this. So he would ask you out. I said, trust me.
yeah,
Just so he's
yeah. I usually say I'm from Jamaica. That's what I say too. And I took my Jamaican passport also. So most places that I went, because once you have a CARICOM passport, you don't need a visa to go to the continent. Most of the
Mhm.
places. So I traveled on my CARICOM
yeah.
passport.
And I have a world passport because I know that I'm indigenous to Alkebulan. So I use that when I need to.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. 6 months, this Dasita, what about your project about the education or the research
Oh,
that you went out there, or do you want us to have a private conversation? I mean, like on a
no,
one-on-one.
I could just talk generally about it. Yeah, so I've had several meetings with some of the education people, and someone from my group actually offered me a space to use as an office. One of the guy from the diaspora group, he's in Gambia,
Mhm.
Musa. I want to shout out to Musa. And the chairman is also from Gambia. So he is there and he's running around trying to get all the documentation that we
Mhm.
need to get in place. But I did a few trainings and I've had very good reception to, because on the continent, the focus right now is from 3 years and up.
Mhm.
So many people realize that based on the research that is showing that brain development occurs between 0 and 3. So there are many people who are actually now recognizing that we need to start a program such as mine that will focus on pregnant mothers and mothers that have children 0 to 3.
And fathers too. We don't leave
Yeah,
them
and
out. But we
family.
know
We're
culturally
just gonna do
it's
families,
different.
families that have 0 to 3 year olds, because what happens before you get to kindergarten is really critical
Mhm.
for brain development. And that's because that's when you learn, your language skills, your social skills, your critical thinking, the frontal lobe. And once you learn about the brain, how it functions, then you can be intentional with children. So as they grow up, they won't have anyone coming from the West and just having them sign papers. They could actually think
Mhm.
and problem solve and ask questions. So that's so I'm hoping when I go back, we'll just get the project off the ground.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yes. With the documentation and the process, was it easy for you to get access? Like, anyway, you say your collaborator out there is doing that.
Yeah, well,
Mhm.
it was because in
Yes.
order for you to have like a non-profit in the Gambia, you must have a Gambian partner.
Yes.
So
Sure.
the partner we made him the chairman. So he will go to the offices, make appointments. Like when I was there from Ghana, have any meetings, he'll go and just arrange meetings, and then I'll go and we do a presentation, stuff like that.
Mhm.
But change is a challenge. Change is a challenge. So, I wrote an article got it published last week in one of the Gambian newspaper on brain development. I think I sent it to you. Maybe you could share it in the chat, where
Um,
we really want to start that discussion around brain development. Because as I
okay.
said, the UN is saying only 7% of the children on the continent have access to quality early childhood education. That's very important.
Um, just examples. I mean, I want to understand. Like, for instance, I grew up in the village and I saw the way the children, the mothers in the village dealt with their children. Is it because of the terminology or what? Or what is it that they should really pay attention that they are not doing? Because I know from maybe it is different the way they did it. And I mean, without an educational sector, but if it was mimicking or smiling or getting even more close, I don't think the West even has started to do that, comparing to African mothers.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we're not saying what African mothers are, what we're not saying what people are doing are incorrect, but the research is showing that with neuroscience research, you can enhance, you can get better child outcomes.
Hmm.
So no one is, because people have been growing up kids ever since time of memorial. So nobody's saying that's wrong, but neuroscience now is able to look at the brain and actually identify 108 different centers in the brain and what the functions of all the centers are. So if you
Hmm.
have that information, you could be intentional.
Yes.
For example, we learned that the Broca's area in the brain is responsible for language. Yes, we know most African speak 6 and 7 languages. But language is not just speaking, right? It's understanding, it's comprehension, it's processing, it's being able to follow directions, it's being able to listen both actively and passively.
And articulating your
And
thoughts as well.
exactly, if someone asks, if your child comes home and you say, "Oh, so how was your day?" Is the child just gonna say good, or is the child able to explain? Well, I did this, and then you would say to the child, "Oh, so what was the best part of your day?" So you ask open-ended questions so children can express themselves. And children should not be afraid to speak with adults. And we know that in our culture, a lot of times children are seen and not heard. And if children question an adult, it's seen as rude, you know? So at home, if you're not able to do that, when you go out, you won't be able to do that either. So therefore, you become a victim. So language is very, so it's just, pointers we're giving to enhance what we're doing. They're doing this in Europe. I mean, they're doing it in China. They're doing it in Asia. But when you type in brain development on the continent, we're not having that discussion.
And it's really like a mechanic has a variety of
Mhm.
tools for different aspects of repairing a vehicle. It's very similar. We're providing additional tools to place in your toolbox. You know, it is challenging when your child is 5 or 6 and asking questions. Case in point, I was speaking with my friend yesterday. His son is now 11, and he's talking to me. First of all, he gave his son the phone, and we're talking. And then I'm asking his son a question, and he take the phone. I said, "What happened?" He says, "Oh, he asked too many questions." I said, "Well, you gave him the phone so he and I can talk, right?" So you have to be able to create the platform for them to ask questions, because what ends up happening is when it comes time for critical thinking, some of those skills are limited. And I can say that because at one point I was the assistant director and also helped with the admissions of a new college of pharmacy. And majority of our applicants and students were from countries in Africa. And there were many skills that they didn't have. They were brilliant, but then when it came to the social piece and critical thinking, it was limited.
Mhm.
And what we're saying is, because we've done the research, we use Dr. DeGrew's material as well, and have identified key areas that we as melanin dominated folks sometimes do not have all the tools for. We're now taking the information that we have, making it valid for our community, and saying, here's information for you to incorporate into what you do already. We don't do parenting classes because you're going to parent the way you parent based on many factors: your spiritual belief system, how you were raised, how you want to raise your child based on some things that happened with you that you maybe say, that's not what I want to do. So there are many factors that come into play. And what we do is just deliver information, and you say, all right, this piece works for me, that piece doesn't work for me. This piece works for me, that piece doesn't work for me. And that's it. So is the African system really great on some fronts? Yes. Is the European system okay on some aspects? Yes. Is the American system, as it pertains to early childhood, is questionable, because I study the early childhood systems of many different countries, and the US has some work to do.
Yeah, we all have work to do, but I'm gonna give you a good example when I say critical thinking. So when I was in the Gambia, I went to a motel to stay. So of course, no one has been in the room for a long time, so the hangers are dusty, and they're wooden hangers. So one of the person was like cleaning up. I gave him the hangers and I asked him to wash them for me so I could hang my clothes up, and he brought them back to me wet. So I said to him, "How am I gonna hang my clothes on wet hangers?" So the idea of even thinking that, okay, this lady needs these hangers, so let me dry them and bring them to her. So stuff like that I'm talking about. The idea to think critically. Because if I'm saying to you, I need to hang up my clothes, wash these hangers, why would you bring them back to me wet? You see what I'm saying? So it's these kind of processing, thinking, analyzing, and problem solving that's missing.
And the other part too, case in point, we facilitated a workshop yesterday, and one mother said, I don't want my child to go to school as yet because I think the amount of hours there is too long. I said, okay. She said, well, my child knows her alphabets. My child knows how to count. Now, many times when families say their child knows how to knows the alphabets, is because they've memorized the song. If I pull out the letter D by itself, they won't know the letter D. So that doesn't mean you know the alphabet. That means you know how to memorize. And they do a lot of that here. And so we say what you do is you start with certain letters based on the writing patterns, the doodling patterns of a young child, which would be first they do circular motions and then up and down strokes. So those are the letters you start to expose them to when you want them to learn the letters of the alphabet, not the alphabet, because that's different. It's just singing the song.
Yeah.
So that means you go in the street and they see the letters, they're able to identify. Then and only then do they know the letters of the alphabet.
Yeah. And also, yesterday the topic of our class was the 30 million word gap. So a couple of years ago, I think 4 years ago, they did a research, because I don't know if they do a lot of research on the continent, but over here, in Europe and stuff, they're big on research. So they did a research where for 2.5 years, they followed people of different economic status. And at the end, they had a recorder. So they went into the home, and by the hour, they record how many words this child is hearing, how many words the parent is using. And at the end, they realized that the person on a high economic status, the child at 3 years old will hear 30 million words. And as the economic ladder goes down, the words get less. And a lot of times, the people of color are in the lower entourage. So we just talked about how words are empowering, and why you need to speak with babies, why you need to be reading with babies, why you need to, when you take them out, you need to be identifying objects. And as you grow up, it really lessens crime in the community, because if a teenager is able to express him or herself by saying, oh, Rashima, you did this to me and I really didn't like it. It hurts me. It will be more beneficial than taking out your gun or your knife and stabbing your friend. So words, so when we do workshops, we're actually teaching families why 0 to 3 is important, because those critical years, children build on it. When they get to pre-K or kindergarten and they're frustrated with their shoes, they're able to say, teacher, can you help me, please? Instead of just throwing their shoes around or getting upset, or, so these are some of the things that is very important during those critical years of brain development.
Which, as they get older, is translated, when you look at employers or colleagues, is translated to what's known as soft skills or life skills.
Exactly.
But the foundation, I always say that if you're going to build a house, in order for the walls to remain for a long time, the foundation must be strong and solid. So we're providing the tools for you to have a strong, solid foundation for your baby and the community. Yeah. I saw something in the chat and I want to address it real quick. It takes a village. I'm a big believer of that. And sometimes I always say this. You know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. And if you are in a situation and you see someone doing something with a young child that could have been handled differently, you can just gently say to them, perhaps in the future you can consider it this way, because we're building a brain, and language is very important. I had to do that yesterday. A parent said, oh, my child is very aggressive. I said, we have to be very mindful of the language that we use, because over time you begin to take that on, and that's not what we want for our children. So consider just saying he's active, right? So whether it's another parent or a colleague in the classroom, it's okay to know that their lived experience may be different than yours. And if you have information that you can share with them, do it in a gentle way, not a way that is saying to them, oh, you don't know better. And we have this way of just easily saying, well, what's wrong with you, rather than how can I help you? What is it you need? It's all in the language.
Yeah. And yeah, I think we should just introduce ourselves, because a lot of your viewers doesn't really know us. So I'm gonna do at this point.
Anyway, for the ones that are new, Daseta,
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
Daseta Gray,
exactly, exactly. So
or maybe Olafumi is that. So just go ahead. Yes.
yeah, so
It's
my
new.
name is Daseta Gray. I have a master's degree in early childhood education and a BA in psychology. I'm also a certified infant toddler specialist. And I am a candidate at Harlem Family Institute. I'm studying to be a psychoanalyst. So I do therapy also. And I write articles also around trauma. Okay.
Good day, Olufemi. I too am an infant toddler specialist. Daseta is my mother, so I've learned a lot from her. I have a master's degree in early child education. I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategist, and many of my colleagues call me a disruptor as well, because I believe it's important to reset systems to have better outcomes. And I'm a mom.
Oh, yeah, we do
And
workshops.
yeah, I also am a brand manager for a very large Nollywood company that produces and distributes Nollywood films in the US.
And we also do
I think that's
workshops
it.
on we also do workshops online. We do parenting workshops. We do trainings for staff and stuff like that. So that's just a little bit about us.
Yes, the professional developments are done in English.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Anyway,
it's important for people to know our background because sometimes, people don't
yes.
realize that you're speaking based on experience and not just books. And I
Ah,
have
okay.
I've grown up three daughters, Olafumi, and then my 23-year-old just finished college. She has a BA in anthropology and African history.
And the third.
Okay. Oh yeah, the third one is my adopted daughter from Dominican Republic.
She's a lawyer.
She's a lawyer.
Okay. Wow. I
Yeah.
mean, you
So
see,
I feel like I've been a successful parent.
big
Could give
time.
advice.
Anyway, Daseta Gray is not new on the Pan African Daily TV. I mean, you hear her credentials and everything, but she's one of the epitome. We started the Pan African Daily TV, all of us together. And so,
Yes, exactly.
but when she came, she actually was on that family and children and early child education. That's the topic that we know her and traumas and all this. Olafumi, we're meeting her for the first time. We're so grateful to get to know her because she's always the one in the background putting the sitter always on the screen, but she's never had that.
Exactly.
We've never had that.
Exactly.
Yes, we've never had that opportunity to have her like we're having her here today. Another question, particularly, I'm so focused with the continent. When you talk about the research, um, do you take into consideration the research done on the continent or the research that is done out here for the continent?
Well, it's I'm not sure who did the research, but we are doing our own research because Olafume's son, when he was born, I bought a video camera, so we've been videotaping him since birth. He's 9 years old now. So when I do workshops, I show those videos based on the research that's here on brain development, because you
Mhm.
could actually see these things happening. You take it from the paper and take it to the live screen. So when we do research, we'll show, if we're talking about critical thinking and problem solving, we'll
Yes,
show him actually doing that,
beautiful.
and then we refer to the research. So the
Yes.
thing is, wherever children are, there are certain skills that they need. Because as you grow up, you need to learn how to work with people of different cultures. You need to learn how to self-regulate, because if you're at work and your boss says something and you don't like it, you can't just blow up because you lose your job. So you have to learn how to self-regulate. So all these skills, they're just basic across the globe.
Mhm.
So yes, it might be done, the research might be done in Germany, but there are certain things as a human being you need.
There's a documentary called Babies,
Oh yeah.
and it looked at infants in different parts of the world and showed how the very basic foundation is needed is universal.
Mm.
So even though some of the research may not be specific to melanin dominant groups. And we know there's historical reasons behind that altogether. But it is up to us to take the information and translate it so that it can relate to our community.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It would be different if we had no knowledge of our community. If I was a Caucasian woman talking here about melanin dominated folks, I personally would have a problem with that. Because you don't walk in the shoes of a melanin dominated individual. In fact, I have a client where I established the very first play space in Harlem of its kind in New York. And my clients are Caucasian. And I remember when we opened the space, or when we were planning this space, they wanted to do certain things. We looked at all these other places in Lower Manhattan with the wealthy area. And I said, hold on. You're putting this in this community. Half of the things that you see and envision is not going to work. And this is the reason why. You hired me to advise you accordingly for success. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So your way is not going to be the way that's most impactful to this community. And a lot of that was based on the research that we were doing for many, many years. So I wasn't speaking just to say, oh, I don't think you're going in the right direction. I was speaking from knowledge base and an experience of walking the streets of Harlem for over 20 plus years to know. And doing research on our own for 6 of those years with different groups in different communities of melanin dominated folks and getting the same answers, believe it or not.
Exactly.
So we already know that if you're in the Caribbean, if you're in the US, if you're on the continent, there's, for some reason, they're just
certain things.
Our thought process to some degree is very, very similar.
Exactly.
So the tools we provide are tools that are transferable no matter where you are.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And one good example I'll show you, I'll say is, sometimes I sell books in the community, sell books for $1, and we live in a Black community. And, a Black mother with a 6-month-old will say, oh, the baby's too young. She can't read no book. But an Asian woman who is pregnant will come by and buy 10 books. And she's pregnant. So the thing, we're saying how culturally and how people are socialized. Because in the Asian community and the Jewish community, people are socialized differently, I mean, I do understand that, that forbid us to read. But the thing is, now it's 2021, and our mindset needs to start changing and start understanding that research is out there and the research we can use to have better child outcomes. Because in the city, for example, a lot of children, they get to kindergarten and they're not ready. And they're in special ed, and then they grow up and they end up in the juvenile system, and then they end up in the prison system. And there's like a clear correlation between illiteracy and antisocial behavior. So readers are leaders. And if we're not going to invest in our children, it's going to be like an issue.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I am saying, I'm particularly referring actually to the Royal African community on the continent where I grew up. And it's not everything that you say is correct. We're moving in that direction, but I want to give clear examples, and that is why some of the developments that we've had on the continent worked. For instance, Olufemi, you already made it very clear. It takes a village to raise a child. I'm focusing on the rural community. I'm talking about you're taking the project on the continent. Probably it will be necessary to look at it also, take a research from that point of view on your own experience, how they think, how they communicate, how they do, and then you can base your focus based on what you know. Why most of this, sorry, why most of these projects never work. They also brought up when luckily, Olufemi, you already removed it in my mouth. That one was not us, right? That one was something. But I'm just saying the systems somehow that we relate and generalize, there would be a difference maybe in intercultural experience if
Yeah.
this educated sector, young women that are educated, fine. Rural sector, where the women even basically don't read and write, they do oral discussion with their children, talk to them, and they school. And that's why most of us are doctors, because we come from that rural sector where we never had that. But one thing
Yeah.
that I absolutely agree upon, even though we struggle along, is that communication, that early communication of asking questions. And I think, I don't know whether you look at it, it's a dominant culture that is a setback to us, that children don't question elders, or there's that kind of communication that is really targeted to be aware of something.
Yeah. So, well, the thing is, I mean, I grew up in Jamaica, and remember, the same Africans are in Jamaica, right? They have to be taken there, so it's the same thing. But when I was in the Gambia, I went to Barra, and Barra is 3 hours out of. It's like really in the rural area, and we
Mm-hmm.
did a training, and the teachers, we had a cross section of people. We had teachers, mother groups, father groups, principals, early childhood education. It was a really an array of people, and
Mm-hmm.
the same things that we are discussing, that is the same challenges they're having.
Correct.
Yeah, so so it's really the same challenge.
But let me share this, because I don't want you, Dr. Susan, or
Listening.
your viewers to think that we subscribe to the Western process of research.
We would never even think like that.
But in terms of no, in terms of let me rephrase that. In terms of doing the research there, right, in the Gambia.
Mm-hmm.
What we did, so mom went to the Gambia first over a year ago and spent a month there. While there, it was really fact finding. And is when she came back, she said, okay, let's do this structure, and was able to connect with folks that are in the education sector, had the chairman reach out to folks in the different, they're called sectors, right? In the different sectors, and
Yeah.
created a WhatsApp group. So that what is created by Sabri Education Services Gambia is based on those that are on the ground doing the work.
Yeah.
We're not coming in saying this is the way it should be done. No. We're hearing from them, taking the information and knowledge that we already have and saying, how can we create a good union that is going to make sense for the Gambians in Gambia? We are not saying the US method is correct. We are saying that the brains develop the same foundationally, but how can we use the elements of what you're already doing to just
Exactly.
say, all right, do it, consider doing it this
Or
way and why?
just look at it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's very fundamental. And I think exactly that's where my question was driving to. I mean,
Yeah, and that is why,
Spirit
you are
was like, no,
lecturing
no,
to
no, 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 no,
us.
no, no, no,
and,
no,
and
no.
that is why that is why I mentioned that I did trainings while I was there. We videotaped it,
Sorry.
and then from that I have a WhatsApp group just for educators in the Gambia.
Yes. And then
Good.
we have
I
another
mean,
group for the diaspora. So everyone from different countries that's connected to the African diaspora can share a variety of information, even it's education or otherwise, because I talk about intersectionality, right? So
yeah, but we have and I'm the only American on the team in the Gambia because everyone else are Gambians, and the chairman is a Gambian. So I made the chairman. I made a Gambian the chairman. I'm like the vice chair when I go there.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm the founder, but we have to get this.
Wonderful. Incredible. I think, yes, if we can go on and start doing that kind of like fact finding, I'm just saying, like, otherwise, you could also, like, not take into consideration the cultural setup, the spirituality, the history, all this, the language involved. And we know that the brains in Africa are more healthier than the one out here. So if they do the research here, it's also depending on the culture. Are they working with diversity here in the Gambia? Probably not, or on the continent, not a smaller part of it. It is just in that attitude, like I said, a lot have gone and they feel frustrated because they never did this. But of course, I'm not talking to you. You are Africans and coming from that background. But those are also critical thinking questions that the audience are asking and we're asking. And because you're lecturing us, because we find the project very interesting. You had been saying it long ago, Sister Daseta, that you were going to put that system. And that's what exactly we're thinking. The curriculum should have a different setup. And issues like early child development, I don't think it even ever existed on the continent in that way.
Well, no, but not yeah, no, they're changing. But we're gonna have a pan. Once I start a daycare center, it will be a Pan-African daycare. You know, we're gonna have the alphabet with S for Dr. Susan, D, N for Nkrumah. Yeah, we're gonna create. You know, because you really have. If you're gonna teach Pan-Africanism, you have to start when children are very young.
Yeah, I wanna just touch on something, because even though the work is being done in the Gambia, I have a colleague that is from Nigeria. She, because of the pandemic, she ended up spending, I think, 5 months in Nigeria. And when she came back, she called me. She said, you know, I have to put a team together and I want you a part of the team, because while she was there, she had an opportunity to go to different early childhood spaces and see the some of the challenges. And they're saying, oh my goodness, please, we need professional development around early childhood stuff. And I'm sharing that because of a comment that I saw. And yeah, Gambia is small, Nigeria is much bigger, but the challenge is real.
It's real. It's real.
It's very real, and it's not just in small Gambia. I can say that it's an issue in small what's one of these little islands in Grenada, but we have to look at it as a global piece. Again, the village isn't just limited to one of the 53 countries. No, it's a universal element that we have to understand as part of our reality. Is it everyone's reality on the continent? Of course not. And that's not what we're saying. Yeah. We're saying that provide the tools, let them incorporate it into what they're doing. And the hope is it will be a model for other sectors in the Gambia and then span to other countries. Like with the Nollywood stuff, we've taken it a step further. So not only are we doing the Nollywood, but we're doing African inspired content. So we have an education program. We've partnered with a producer of education content that reflect us, that we distribute. So we're going to be doing more of that as well.
We also have a blog.
Yeah, we have a blog too. But I just want to share that it is up to us to tell our story. I have to tell my colleagues when I do my work at the state level with most of the Caucasian folks that we have to rewrite our narrative. I had a colleague say to me that we just had a panel. I just had a discussion about the role of men in early childhood. And she had an issue with the fact that my panelists were predominantly young, melanin-dominated men. And I said, no, I did that intentionally because we need to hear from them. We need to rewrite the narrative. And the only way to do that is to hear from their perspective.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
And also, Susan, I just want to add that for some reason, a lot of us like to wear a mask. Yeah, so we need to take off the mask and look at the reality. Because when you look across the group, I know that a lot of children don't have access to early education. And those first 5 years, the first 2,000 days are critical. And even you as an adult, you could think about when you get in some kind of issue, you go right back to those early years, what were you taught? When I'm in the village and I can't do this, what did they say to me? I had to be independent. So all those skills that you learn from 0 to 5, that's what takes you through life. Your mother always telling you, you have to be honest,
True.
work hard. So all those things, it stays with you for life. So 0 to 5 is really building the foundation for life. And the thing is, on the continent, we have so much resources, but we're still saying we don't have this and we're poor. Now, if enough, if the education system was a system that was teaching critical thinking and problem solving, you would see those challenges as an opportunity to problem solve. You wouldn't see them as just problems, sitting there. Oh, we don't have this. Oh, we got to borrow this. We got to borrow that. Why aren't we bringing someone from India, from China to build a factory and have them teach people there to do things instead of growing cotton in Ghana, shipping it to China. They're making material and printing fake African material and bring it back to Africa to sell you. Why aren't we growing the cotton there, producing it, making cloth, and building the stuff there and selling it? So these are some of the things we have to think about. And we can't be wearing a mask. We have to stop doing that.
Okay. Beautiful. Good. I mean, when are we when are we officially launching? How far do we need to go again?
Officially launching what?
No, I mean like how much longer do we need to get the project on the ground?
The NGO?
Yes.
Oh, it's long. Wait.
Oh,
it's already launched.
Yeah.
It's going. The challenge for us right now is getting a signature, an agreement in place, the second part of the agreement in place with the education system of Gambia.
You need to open an account.
To be able to open a bank account so that we can start getting donations to help continue doing the various projects we want to do. We want to put a few boreholes in some of the villages, as well as there's one of the schools that we want to help wire so they have electricity throughout the day, or put up the solar panels, or fix the solar panels, or train someone to repair the solar panels. Yeah. So that's where we are right now, but we've started the work.
Yeah, it's registered and everything. Yeah. And it's registered. And that's why I'm writing articles, so that way people could start thinking and talking about brain development.
Okay, so, but you're going to operate the center, right? The kindergarten.
Well, what I'm gonna do first is open a play space, because we're still trying to find a space to build a daycare center, but we could open a play space in the meantime. Okay. So I just sent a lot of materials. It should be getting there in another 3 weeks. So it's gonna be stored at Musa's place. And then once we get there, we look for a place to open as a play space where moms and their babies could come in. We could talk with them. They could start just playing, because play is very important.
They play all the time on the continent in any case. What do they do?
Yeah, they play all the time. But the thing is, you need to have certain tools.
Strategic
also,
play, yes.
They need to have puzzles. Exactly. Yes. There are 16 different types of plays.
I was just joking. I understand the play corner that you're talking in the daycare. Not okay. The side.
Yeah. So yeah. Because you actually learn a lot of skills during play. Because if you're playing with your friend and your friend want to play with the block and you want to play with the same block, you have to start negotiating, right, at 2 and 3. So play teaches a lot of life skills.
It does. I want to address the question about the men. Where are they in all of this? Yes. Based on the discussion that we hosted, it was 2 weeks ago now. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And I was very intentional, like I said, with having melanin-dominated men, and the women stepped back. Our only role was to open the floor, and that was it. Because we need to create a safe space for the men to speak candidly and for us to listen and take notes. And the men are there, however, the spaces are not inviting to the men. Right? From the day, from the hospital, from the delivery room, to be quite honest, we'll always check on the mother. And then when the baby is born, the baby, very rare do we turn to the father who helped, who planted the seed in order for the baby to come, right? Because they're important in the process.
Yeah.
But we don't turn to them and say, how are you doing?
Yeah.
So that they understand they're an integral part of the process. And then when you have your child in a childcare program, you are shocked when dad comes, or the male figure in the child's life comes to pick up the child. Celebrate him, but don't make it seem like it's a rare occurrence, because it's an uncomfortable feeling. And then we're the men as educators in early childhood, even fewer, because they're viewed as giants. Their tone is a little bit different. Some folks are nervous and have all these thoughts. So we have to create a more inviting environment for them, even with the play space. I made it very clear. Dads, grandparents, aunts, uncles, foster parents, whomever is important in the child's life is welcome and invited into the space. So we just have to continue to welcome the male figure into the space. And I get culturally it's a different dynamic.
Yeah, and I was gonna just say
I get that. But we should still invite them and allow it to be their decision whether or not they want to shift a little bit of their cultural belief or not. I'm not trying to be like the Caucasians to say, no, you have to do it this way, because we're not built like that.
Yeah. So I was just gonna add that when I was in Bara and we were having a discussion that came up, men and parenting and family. And one of the things that they were saying, how this guy was saying how if your friend comes to your house and the father is bathing the child or combing the child's hair, his friend would say to him, where's your wife? Why are you doing that? So in the discussion, they were saying how we have to work on just changing those kind of narratives to let men start understanding that they're part of growing up children. So culturally, and this was being said in Bara when I was in the Gambia, because we had like a discussion. So so it's very interesting how sometimes in some cultures men believe that growing up children is just for women. So that's another interesting dynamic.
We just have to open the door to invite them.
Yeah, so that's why we're having these conversations, because talking is very important, because sometimes you didn't think about something. When you hear it, you say, oh, that makes sense. Maybe I should think about that. But if we don't talk, then we won't even hear new ideas for us to think about.
Mm-hmm. I think that one is a whole, not another topic on its
Exactly, it is. And we need to have some men. We need to have some men on for that.
Yes, because I mean, that's really a lot of education on parenting, or both. Yeah, because the challenges, if we say in our own thinking, we have to invite them, but you say there's some decisions and privileges that we don't invite them and they take it. Why don't they take this responsibility to do that? So, but you see, it goes again, if you're a Muslim or you're this or you're this, and all these setbacks that we have, that certain cultures, oh, it's the job of this. So that one, okay.
Yeah.
I rest my case on that.
Yeah, that's a very
That's how you open the door
for discussion, right?
For discussion and invite, because we know that there are some men that don't subscribe to certain aspects of the culture.
That's true.
Not because they don't want to, but because they've been exposed to other information that they say, hold on. Case in point, I have many friends.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, but also some because they don't want. That's also
yeah.
that some don't.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's another story.
Yeah, like I have some men, I have some friends that are men that come from very affluent families, and their uncles or their dads have multiple wives, and they choose not to, right? Not because someone said you have to do it or you don't have to do it. They made the decision that that's one aspect of their culture, of the culture that they don't want to take on,
Yeah.
right? Um, so as time goes by, you learn, you get more information, and you decide what is going to work best for you. And it's not to be disrespectful to the family, especially when you have a discussion with the family and you say, you know, this is what I want to do, and they're supportive of it. It makes it easier. Um, but again, we just have to create the space to say, if you so choose to walk through this door, you are welcome. And it is a space that is reflective of you. And we also have to remember not just the men but the boys, because we don't create spaces for the boys either when they're in the classroom, which is a whole other discussion. And at some point, that man child is going to grow up to be someone's husband, someone's father, and then the woman is going to turn and say, how come you're not caring, and how come you're not this, and how come?
Yeah.
So we have to think about that too.
Yeah, that's a whole other workshop.
So this different discussion.
All right. So good luck, Olufumi. I mean, that's your skills. That's your sector, Daseta. We are listening and we are looking forward. What is it? How do you want us to support? How do you want us to engage? I think there are also a lot of people that are saying they also come from this sector of child education. Or do you need some collaborators out here? Whatever thing,
Yeah.
we're just listening. It's your project. It's your purpose in life. It's your work in life, and we're learning. All we can do is tell us how you want us to support.
Yeah. Well,
That's
I
the basic. Mhm.
yeah. So I have a WhatsApp group for Sabre Education Services. So I think that's the first thing we could join the group. I'll give. Oh, you want to sign in? We could join the group, and then once we get the account registered, then we'll ask for donations because we'd really like to build a childcare program, a 21st century childcare program. But we cannot accept any money without having a business account because people won't just send you money. You need to have a business account that people could actually donate the money to.
Correct.
So that way we could keep track of what we're going. We're going to be doing a blog also, so that way we can have what's happening with the school on our blog.
Mhm.
But the blog is not up as yet. But for now, I just think people need to just start the conversation also about brain development and why we need to be educating our babies, because the research clearly shows that the brain develops the most from 0 to 3 years old.
Yeah, that's true. I just want to acknowledge, I just want to acknowledge, I hope I don't butcher your name, and if I do, I apologize. Ligola, I thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your experience. We have to remember too that men have feelings just like we have feelings as women, and we have to be mindful of some of the things that we share with them, even if we joke. So I hope you fixed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's definitely we want friends of Sabri, because another thing we want to do is have a space to create a factory so we could actually make the furniture in the Gambia, because there are a lot of carpenters, young people who are not working and they're skilled. So that's another thing we'd like to do also. But we have to get some land and space. But the first thing I'm going to do when I go back, I took 2 bars of books. So I would like to start a library in one of the communities, maybe in Jambanjeli or so, in one of the communities, because I've gone to a few childcare programs and the children have no books.
Won't it be appropriate to create the books in their context and on the continent I think that's also another industry.
Yeah, well,
What
the
do you
thing is,
think?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, exactly. We could do that also, but for now, I try to get books that's general, like science books, books about seeds, books that's
Yes.
age appropriate, books that have people of color, and
Okay.
just take those. And even if the children are not reading English, just to have a book to look through, because their moms or their dads could talk to them about the pictures in the books in their language, because you have to have the basics in your native tongue before you can switch to English. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
have all the basics down, that if you know that this is a cow in Wolof, and then you see it in English, you're able to do that metacognition.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to send you the link, Dr. Susan, but it's just
Okay.
giving me.
You
I'm afraid to log in to type, but we'll get kicked
Oh,
out.
she's on WhatsApp. You could send it to her.
no,
Send it to her on
you can
WhatsApp.
send it on WhatsApp on the cities, and then
Oh,
yeah,
okay, good.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Go on
If
African TV.
not, we will still share it even after the show. When the video is uploaded, we can still share the links on it. So when is the
Yeah.
next time you're going, the sitter, or when are we expecting that all this whole transaction or with the bank is gonna set up, and we
Yeah,
will
I don't know. It's been
have.
8 weeks. We've been waiting for 8 weeks. So
Oh,
I don't know. I'm hoping I'm hoping by tomorrow. If not, we have to look at another process.
okay. All right. So we just say the moment everything is settled, then you give us the feedback, and we come again on the show and do something practical, isn't it?
Yes, we will. Yeah, exactly.
All
But
right.
but I know first we're gonna open a library in one of the communities. So
Okay.
when I go back, I'll go to the village to speak with maybe an alcala and get a space in the village to open a library so the
Mhm.
children can at least borrow books maybe twice a week and have someone in the village, manning the library and stuff like that.
The other
Mhm.
reason why it's important to have some of the books there in before we have the ones created is they need a model. So I
Mhm.
spent 15 years, I think, working on producing the largest African American book fair in North America.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And and so doing that, part of the discussion has always been we don't have enough materials that represent us. However, we have a good amount of books for the older children. And when I
Mhm.
would speak to the authors about creating books for younger children, they don't really have we don't really have workshops to give them examples to work from and then create their own from it.
Mhm.
So almost like a prototype. So we'll take those and then let them know the different elements that are needed. Because if you just write a book and it doesn't have key elements to help develop the skills, that book is not really helpful.
Exactly. Yeah. And yesterday, one of the things we spoke about is like the sight words. Because when you're going to learn English, there are certain words you need to be able to recognize before you get to school. So if you're writing a book for young children, those words need to be incorporated within the story.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Anyway,
it's like a,
yes. All right. Good. I We are also interconnected, and we know a lot of creative artists that will do, like, draw, painting,
e-
caricatures, and stuff like that. In case
exactly.
you need
Awesome.
such contacts, because I think those are also contacts that, in terms of writing, is not only the language but also probably
Exactly.
pictures and
Of course.
drawing and
Yes.
painting. And there's a lot of art in that sector,
Mm-hmm.
on the
Exactly.
continent, which I think is valuable and also,
Mm-hmm.
affordable on
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
yes.
Thank you for that. Yeah, there's some other
Yes.
ideas of things brewing, so we'll do it step by step that we will share
Correct.
to
Correct.
gather folks on the continent to be involved in those projects because
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in sustainability.
Yes.
And if we're able to create projects where sustainability is there and really highlight the skills and talents of our people, that's what we want to do.
Yeah, I've met a few artists while I was there, and I already spoke with them about being illustrator for the books. Yeah, they're quite a there are many talent, but as a people, we're very talented.
Of course, the talent is
Have you,
only from us. Where else?
Yeah, have you looked at the Olympics? If it wasn't for us, there'd be no excitement there.
I'm telling you, the Queens of Jamaica, don't even go there. Because
Yeah, and that lady from Venezuela, she's like
yes,
that's the
yes,
first yeah, so we know
yep,
we're talented.
yep, yep,
Yeah,
we are. I mean, I really truly appreciate your work, and I mean, it was spontaneous, and we're grateful to even have you on the show tonight. I can imagine if you had to take time to prepare and bring, you would have actually brought us even more than what we have. But this is who we are. This coming and just doing it because it comes from the heart. So we don't need to memorize,
exactly.
like you said, or go and bring some charts here that is going to blow, confuse us more. But the conversations were very were very friendly,
Exactly.
because I think that's exactly what you did in Gambia. Exactly. So
Yeah.
thank you for the good work. That was a very great interview or conversations that we're having here. I'm so happy that you had to sit in for Reverend Dr. Ninana, who could not make it today but would make it tomorrow. For some of our viewers that came late, you just saw, and a lot were asking the question. So we have Daseta here and her daughter Olofumi, telling us about their project in Gambia, and also their journey on the continent for the first time, their experiences, and it has been a very, very warm-hearted conversation. I myself have never been to Gambia or Ivory Coast, so hearing from them, even though I come from the continent, is also so very,
Yeah.
very strange to me, and I really admire, and I'm jealous. I can really tell you that. Um,
We gotta meet us there, Susan.
yes, yes. So um, I don't know. Did you send the link, Olo,
Yes.
for me?
Yes.
All right, in
Yes.
the
It's
WhatsApp.
there. Yes.
Okay, let me just do one great thing before. Okay, I see
You
it
see
here.
it?
Yes,
Okay.
good,
Okay.
beautiful. So we're rounding up, and want to thank you so very much. Is there anything that you want to just round up with?
Yeah, I just want to say this is a real family because we got quick like 20 minutes ago 20 minutes ago said, oh, my guest is not, and I'm available. So I really want to thank you for giving us a platform to have this discussion. And we'll keep you posted.
And
Olo,
I
for
and
me, when am I
yes.
going to have you on a one-on-one? We have to talk about a lot of things that you've mentioned there. I think I'll reach back to you and then we'll get it. I've just posted the link of their WhatsApp group in the chat group. Please check it out. And for
Great.
those that are here, make sure you're going to share this video for those that could not make it, because this was really a spontaneous program. I know Dasita has a huge following each time she's here. If people actually would have known that this is her show, would have had a lot
Yeah.
more. But
Hmm.
then it's also okay. The video is in production, so it's gonna stay here, and before you know it, it's gonna be circulating. And yeah, it was nice to just have you again because it's been a while, sis.
Yeah, it has been a while. It has been a while.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you too. Thank you so much. So we
Thank
see
you.
ourselves very soon. Okay.
Okay. Have a good night.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. My regards to the grandkids and all of you. Keep it up. We're so proud of your work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Yes. Bye. Good. So we thank all of our viewers that just tuned in. Like I said, normally the program today would have been a Reverend Dr. Nina Nakweku, but suddenly 30 minutes before the show, he called in to say he couldn't make it because they had a blackout in their community out there in the Americas. And so he had no electricity to connect to the show. So we are taking him live tomorrow on this conversation. And we hope to get all of you again joining, because that conversation with him is very, very important. It's about healing. It's about how we connect more, like you saw on the topic. Then Saturday we already have the guest for the tribute for Professor Dr. Rashidi, who passed away. So we'll be having an eulogy with Professor Baina Bello, Professor James Small, Professor Maponga, and other that will be signing in for that. So we're looking forward to share that departure and that solemn ceremony on Saturday on the Pan African Daily. So we see ourselves tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in spontaneously. And We're sorry again for the inconvenience. Another program was announced, then another one. But that's how flexible we should be. And also, it would not have been polite for us not just to come live because of a disappointment like that. Okay. So we have to be useful. Thank you. If you're here for the first time, please don't forget to click the button, subscribe, and the notification bells in case of updates or, sudden changes like this, you get your notification. And so you're set. And we want to thank all of you. I know before Saturday, we're going to hit 25,000 subscribers. There is a broken record on the Pan-African Daily. So our 1 million subscribers campaign is rolling so well. Thanks to you. Thanks to all of you that are supporting. At least in the day, we have at least 300 subscribers. And in most cases, I can remember Patrick and I, the other day we were watching and we had 600 subscribers in a day. That is a huge record. Yes. So thank you. Is also of our consciousness is because we just know this is the right time. And we're going to keep doing what we have been chosen in our time and space to do right now. So blessings to all of you. Stay safe in your respective areas, and we see ourselves tomorrow. Bye-bye. You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.